Hey, welcome to another episode of Remarkable Regional Business. In this episode, we're speaking to Jarrod Robinson from ConnectedPE. Jarrod is an absolute legend. He runs ConnectedPE is quite the remarkable business based here in Bendigo, but servicing the entire world. He has a database of, I think, the largest database of PE teachers in the whole world, 30,000 of them. And he services that market really, really well. We're going to be talking about a whole long list of really valuable insights into how he's grown that business and how he runs it right now. But off the top of the list, the highlights, we talk about designing a business that serves you rather than you serving it, which is something that every business owner can relate to. How to launch products and services that you know will work. So not just shooting in the dark and hoping something sticks. Building a business that creates businesses, sellable businesses. That's pretty rocking. That's where Jarrod's at the moment. And leveraging AI as a product. And I know you will have been almost probably sick to death of hearing about AI as a tool, but Jarrod's used it in his business as a product to sell to his consumers and his clients. So stay tuned for that. This is a rockin' episode, and I really hope you get lots of value from it. So let's get into it. Okay, Jarrod, thanks so much for coming into the Emporium studio here. This is going to be so much fun. I'm really excited to hear all about ConnectedPE. So thanks for coming in, mate.
Appreciate it. I got here. I did go to the wrong place though first.
Did you? Where did you go first?
Clear Dynamics. And then I looked at the email. I'm like, he did not say Clear Dynamics at all. And lucky they're close.
Yes, that's great. Well, funnily enough, this episode right now is following on from number one episode with Craig Hunter from Clear Dynamics. So
it's synergy. It's meant to connect it.
It's fully entangled. Well, we're not talking anything about Clear Dynamics today. No. We are talking about ConnectedPE, your business. Mm-hmm. Mate, what is ConnectedPE?
Wow. I mean, what it is now is very different to kind of how it began.
Okay, well, let's start with what it is now. What does it look like right now?
Really, it's PE teachers, and it's a platform that provides resources and software to help PE teachers be better at what they do.
Right.
That's all encompassing.
Yeah.
But really, they're the audience.
Okay.
There's a lot of PE teachers in the globe, and we kind of get to be able to leverage the internet to get in touch with all of them.
What sort of market are we talking about in terms of how many PE teachers roughly is your market size?
Well, I mean, I don't even know the exact number of that. But I know the numbers of schools, and there's 10,000 schools in Australia, and if you extrapolate that kind of general population connection to the world, it's a big audience. Every school probably has a PE teacher, and they're not going to stop kind of arriving. So, yeah, we build for that niche within a niche.
Okay.
PE teachers.
Right. So currently the front end of ConnectedPE is a web platform with tools and resources.
Pretty much, yeah. It's a membership, subscription kind of entity. They get access to what I like to refer to and market as Netflix for PE. Nice. I think that's a good metaphor to kind of help you understand what it is that they get. And as part of that, there's all these different tools and widgets and apps that they get to leverage and use to make their job a bit easier.
Wow. So
didn't begin there though.
Yeah. So that's what it is now. Give me maybe some stats of what your how many members that are using the platform, in how many countries, what sort of scale of usership and business are we talking about here?
Yeah, so we've got free and paid plans. So it depends, the mix of that, but we've got well over 10,000 plus members and courses that, people can do on the platform from other people presenting on the platform for us. There's over 200 courses, which, sounds like a lot, but you sort of do that over time and you get this big library of material. And we've got AI generation in there now for like lesson planning and so on. And I think the last time I checked, it was about 20,000 lessons generated in the 3 or 4 or 5 months that we've had that kind of tool set at our disposal. So, yeah, it's lots. And then we've got a lot of iPhone apps and things too that are outside of that website, and some of those have, millions of downloads, and
Wow.
really just building things for teachers and
Wow.
global scale stuff.
Right. So paint the picture of what are some of those other kind of assets. You mentioned apps, like it's not just connectedpe.com. Like what else exists in the ecosystem that is this business?
We've got a product called Sports Tracker, and you remember when you went to school and you were competing in sports events like your swimming and athletics carnivals and cross country? Well, I mean, most schools run that type of setup. So we have a platform that allows them to run their carnivals and enter results from the events and share that with parents live and, make that whole process easier. So that's one of them. We've got kind of like tools to help people get moving and active with like Chrome extensions. And I mean, we've had a little bit of ADHD along the journey and built an array of things. But these days it's kind of in about 4 or 5 main buckets. Where most of our action kind of happens from, and it's pretty awesome.
Wow, it does sound very cool. Well, that's kind of the front end, what it looks like to the consumer. What about the back end? Like, what does your business look like? What does running this business look like from the back end? Like, who's involved? Where do you operate from? All that sort of stuff.
Just operate out of Bendigo from my desktop, I guess. And I used to have a laptop, so these days I'm even less mobile. These days just a desktop and mostly the phone because with Slack and other kind of tools and your team, then you're really kind of limitless in terms of what you can do. So a lot of what happens in the back end is me communicating with my team, virtual assistants who live in the Philippines and the like, developers who build some of the products and services that we offer, and me only really kind of entering into the fray when I have to give some sort of general guidance or thought direction. And that's usually done via chat to the people who then make that thing happen. So I don't have to do a whole lot of day-to-day. It's more the bigger picture. Maybe put out some fires here and there, but the team ships products, delivers messages, and puts the ideas I have into my head into action, I guess.
That's kind of a dream state for a lot of businesses, being able to, business owners anyway, getting to the stage in their business where the team is the machine and the engine that runs efficiently and effectively.
Sure.
Well, firstly, what is you mentioned, big picture stuff, but detail-wise, like what does your day-to-day look like, activity within the business look like?
I mean, it's a conscious choice, right, to spend as much time as you like on it or, doing other things. And I've made the choice to do not as much as other people might have done. Historically, I used to spend all my waking hours working on things for the business. And what is it that the law of however much time you give something, you're going to spend on it. And some of that work wasn't very efficient and effective, and it's just work for busy kind of, sake. These days, I spend time with my kids. Awesome. And, I run a business that's leveraged because of the staff that we have. It doesn't mean that I'm not over things day to day, but I make the choice to only work when it's kind of required and necessary, and that's a very hard thing to do sometimes.
But, I mean, you've set it up so that you can do that, right?
For sure, yeah. This is an online business that runs and is leveraged by software, essentially. And if you build team around it, then there isn't much left for you to do besides think up new ways to maybe get to market or, communicate the idea, which frees you up, so you can do things that... Because I think time is the ultimate commodity, and a lot of really successful business people are falling into the trap of still being jobs in their business, like still working in their business and a slave to their business, and that for me is not really that desirable.
How long did it take you to get to that stage?
Well, this isn't an overnight journey at all. It's years and years to realize that there's some really good lifestyle trade-offs, and you can make a choice to lean into having a bit more time to do things that the business can make possible for you. And it started by just scheduling out my days. So I've got certain days where you can't book calls. you can't lock in times. And I think you might have used my calendar
Yep.
to book them, and
Yep.
there was probably some days that just weren't available. And
Yep.
it's like a deliberate choice to say, on these days, I don't have meetings. You can't really contact me. And
Yeah.
it's kind of started from there.
Yeah. So did you inject and create the systems that enabled the effective working of the business so that you could make that choice? Or did you just make the choice and deal with the consequences and work it out afterwards?
Well, the scheduling ones, that was a choice. It was like, if you want to book a time with me, then these are the days where it has to happen. And they might be sales kind of conversation stuff that I still personally do. And that's good market research too. But yeah, the consequences evolve from that. And well, what do we need to build around the business so that I can run it from the coffee shop? If I'm down the street and my team member have a question, how can they get in touch with me? A Slack message, and I can fire off a response and kind of go from there. But yeah, everything that we do is very scalable and possible via technology, really. It's that's the part, that's the secret. It's systems and automation that make things happen behind the scenes, yeah.
Yeah, I think you touched on something that's really will resonate with so many business owners and business people, being a slave to the business.
Heaps of them.
So many people.
A lot of
start
vanity
business.
tied to it too.
What's that?
Vanity tied to
Yeah.
that.
Oh, true.
That kind of
Yeah.
that thing.
Yeah, and so you experience that obviously as every
Yeah.
business owner
Yeah,
does.
yep.
What was the catalyst to say, look, to break you out of that and make you realise that what you were playing with was, I haven't started a business. I've just made another job for myself.
Yep.
What was the catalyst for you to realise that was happening and then step out of that?
Well, I mean, if you're the one who's operating the business day to day, there's such a limiting ability. It's very limiting. You are maybe going to be able to produce, a lot of results for your business, but unless you can get outside of that, then the growth of that business is kind of stalled by your time and your restrictions and whatever. So that's one big rock, I guess. You cannot grow without team and the like. But the other one was just lifestyle kind of choices too. As kids being born in around 2017, do I want to be sitting at my computer all day, or do I want to be able to be present in their lives? And that played a big role. And it was very much just those two things meeting together. It's, hey, I can have a highly leveraged business that does good cash flow and generates good revenue that isn't dependent upon me being at a certain time or place or working on a thing at a certain time. And that's, I think, the benefits of tech and automation. Yeah. And then I filled the gaps with team to fill the spaces that tech or automation couldn't do.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, let's step backwards. We've gone recently in the last, would you say, year, where AI has exploded onto the scene with a real dominance in people's awareness. It's been around for a long, long time, but it's very present and accessible.
Yeah.
How did AI shift the way you did things, or how did you implement it into your business, and when did you kind of make that jump?
Well, as it became very present for people to be able to play with the tools and use them, I was there in that early beta stuff with OpenAI and ChatGPT, and playing with some of the API kind of options to see what we could maybe build. But for us now, it's another team member, and it's this forever team member, you can imagine, that has the ability to be reached at any time and ask questions about most domains. And for my team who are in the Philippines, English second language, they're really competent, but it's also a secret weapon for them too. It allows them to have someone that they can kind of bounce ideas off and, share things with. So it's like we've just grown capacity by just subscribing to an AI service and being able to query it and ask questions and have it be part of the workflow that our business has.
It's pretty crazy. You mentioned that you've had 20,000 lessons created with AI. Step me through how that works, how that works for the platform and for the user on ConnectedPE.
Yeah, well, for years, ConnectedPE was Netflix for PE teachers. Come, do courses, get certificates. Now, professional learning is a big part of what teachers have to do, but that's more work. It's always work to do your professional learning, and that comes with, some level of necessity, but like not everyone wants to do that. So the tools that we built recently are about getting back time, and that's a really powerful driver of just general traffic to the platform. It's like people looking for time-saving kind of tools. So AI plays a role there. So they can come to the site. We've got about 10 different AI tools: lesson planner, assessment makers, PE games generators, all these sorts of tool sets, and they can put their query in and get out a lesson output. So a teacher might come along and say, 45-minute basketball lesson, Australian curriculum, year 6. And what will happen is it will generate, a lesson tied to the curriculum and give them some general kind of idea of what it is that they could teach. And then they take that, which might be 60 or 70% of the way there, and make their own edits. Wow. And then release it.
How much time would you say that saves a PE teacher?
Well, we do a webinar where we ask that exact question. So during the webinar we just ran last Friday, there was 1,000 people registered, and the kind of question we ask is, how many hours per week do you spend planning or preparing lessons? And the general kind of mix was about 2 hours to 4 hours. It's very varied depending on how much they've taught or what the thing is they're preparing, but they spend some time. So if we take that and make it half the time, then what we've really done is made them be able to spend more time with their family potentially, or they get to focus on the thing that actually matters, which is the face-to-face stuff with kids. And that's where our messaging kind of, goes. It's like, what would it mean if you didn't spend all the time planning the lesson? You got to spend more time thinking about the delivery of the lesson, and then that was more efficient. Because teachers are overworked, so we kind of lean into that metric, and it's very visible by the feedback we get.
Yeah. One thing that's I'm noticing is that you're really in touch with your target market, your clients and their needs, who they are, what they feel, what they want. That is, it sounds easy, but every business owner will know that some businesses operate and they don't actually know their customers at all.
Yeah, you make assumptions.
Yeah, they make a lot of assumptions, and I'm interested to walk me through the journey of ConnectedPE and how did you get to the stage of knowing your customer so well and building everything based on what the market desire is? What does ConnectedPE look like over its iteration? When did it start? What did it look like at the start, and how have we got to here?
Well, the big reason, the answer for that is because I was the customer. Yeah. So I was a PE teacher. And I think I've kind of always will think of myself as one. And even though I haven't been in the classroom per se for almost 10 years, I have daily interactions with teachers all over the planet, asking questions and needing help around the ins and outs of teaching PE. So in the early days, how this all begun was me creating a blog to share my ideas around using technology in PE. That was it. That was literally it. Wow. And I had no idea that it would become a thing. But, you grow an audience of people, and eventually it was like 1,000 people, and they were following. I'm like, why are they doing this? But they were interested in the topic.
Yep.
And when you have 1,000 people, it's like you get all these data points of pains and issues and challenges and hopes and desires. And then if you can make sense of those things and put them into a product, then you're kind of in the right spot. And the very first product we made was an ebook. Yep. And it was really just a collection of, these are the things I keep hearing. Here's an ebook that helps you introduce technology into your classroom. And that was the seed ground. It's like, repeat that process. Ask, get data, feedback, what do people need, build things to kind of solve their issues.
Wow. And so the first iteration, that ebook, was there a point where you noticed a shift in the market or came up against some barriers of the desire for that particular product wasn't there as much as it was? Or how did you iterate the offerings to scale to where we are now?
Well, I was very much building products, not in all cases, that were before the readiness of schools.
Right.
Not all teachers were ready to embrace digital delivery and using mobile apps in the classroom. So we were very much at the very early stages of even thinking about that kind of thing. So the biggest barrier and constraint was schools' abilities to think that this was something that they could pursue, which led to probably the biggest and most successful product that we've ever had, which was our face-to-face kind of in-person training that we ran in 45 countries, I think, to date, where we would go and train groups of teachers on how to leverage technology in their classroom. So that part was a big barrier. Like, hang on, should we even be thinking about these things?
Right.
And the celebratory victory lap was COVID. When COVID came and it was essential to use digital delivery, it's kind of like, oh, hang on, he's been talking about this since 2011. Wow, it's kind of like, yes, this was the reason why, because there is reasons why this stuff kind of has a lot of validity.
Yeah, wow.
So these days we do less of that because it's kind of assumed that technology plays a role in day-to-day teaching.
Yeah.
And we build out in other spaces.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. So
We're a bit too early.
Yeah.
In some ways. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could look at that as you were leading
100%,
the market in what was coming.
Yep.
Which is a pretty cool space to
I
be.
like to skate to where the puck is going.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of businesses like to operate around where the ball already is at.
Yeah.
And that's fine because that's an opportunity. Like, there's a lot of money to be made in that. But for me, I'm way more interested in where it's headed and building product for the now.
Yeah.
But also, like, what does it look like in 5-10 years? And if I'm not building for that and disrupting myself, someone else will be.
Yeah. What's your process and your thinking? Like, how do you approach doing that practically? Like, do you just kind of sit down and have a good dream session about like what is coming, or like what does it look like for you?
I think that's just all the time. I'm always living in the dream.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
I mean, like, it's just part of the nature of how I operate. But it's like, what does these implications mean? Like, what does what we're looking at now translate into the future? And, AI is obviously a big part of the thinking of where I think it heads next in our field. And, how can we help support teachers in what that might look like? And then build things to support that. If I look at all the competitors, I don't think of them as competitors, but people who do professional learning and stuff for PE teachers now, they're still building their business as if it's 1970. They're doing conferences once a year. They have face-to-face events. They do paper-based resources. And I just don't think they understand that's just not going to be very relevant, even less and less so. So I'm just, looking ahead and how can I keep myself relevant and the business relevant?
Yeah.
And just test things and, kind of iterate from that.
Yeah. So really your goal is to serve an increasing market.
For sure.
And as you say, I love how you communicate about competitors that they're not necessarily, they're just I like to see competitors in the video space as colleagues. We're part of the same industry, right?
Absolutely.
So why on earth would you treat them like the enemy? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But those, a lot of businesses are serving a decreasing and a dwindling market. So you're positioning your business to serve where the market is going to increase and what's going to get more demand for, right? Yeah. I mean, I just look at their product line. I shouldn't say they're not doing it right. They're doing lots of good things, but if their main revenue is driven from creation of lesson plans and rubrics, like, what does that look like in a world where you can spin one up in a few minutes? Yep.
And like that makes me just think, hang on, maybe there's not going to be a business there.
Yeah.
And how do I stay relevant? Because that was a thing that we wanted to do for years, build lessons and material. But the barrier for that is you've got to hire someone to write them, and you're limited by their output. And their time and commitment is costly. And then AI comes along. We build a product that allows people to do that with a click of a button, and we've kind of jumped past all those issues.
All the barriers, yeah. Yeah, timing was perfect. So it sounds like your business was probably one of the ones that did really well in COVID.
Well, we did because we had a lot of online training offering. Obviously, ConnectedPE is literally that, 200 hours of courses. So, hey, just so happens that we have courses on running PE online. Hey, subscribe to the platform and get access to it. So it was a good thing, but there were some other impacts, like other businesses that we run are dependent upon things happening at school. There was no sports carnivals happening. So we did well in some product areas, but in other product areas, it was kind of like a complete...
Wow. Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I want to dive into some success stories. So what are some key milestones over your journey where you were standing there going, wow, how did I get here?
There's been a few, like some of the very first most simple things altogether were that. The first app we ever made that had me make $1,000 in a day from selling a piece of software was like mind-blowing kind of, this is very leverageable and scalable. And, at that stage, I was still just a teacher too. So it was, a big thing. Probably one of the biggest is we ran for many years a conference in Dubai, and we would have about 150 people come to it. It was the ConnectedPE conference, and it was a 6-month conference in that they met for 2 days in Dubai, but for 6 months prior, we had all this free webinars and things happening with the presenters. So it was an extrapolated event, basically, where the assumption was that they would learn over 6 months, different courses and whatever, and then they get together for 2 days and, take it to the next level. And
why Dubai?
Well, it's central to the kind of world for where a lot of people are, so international school sectors. And it makes a ton of sense because you've got people who can fly in from Europe and the Middle East and Africa. And I think 150 people, 7 countries of attendance. And big deal. Lots of organisation involved in those.
That's what I'm thinking. Like how did had you run events before? How did you manage that from a business perspective? I'm going to run an event in Dubai. Do you just go, I'm going to work it out?
Well, we'd run hundreds of events prior to that, but they were single-day events where it was one room and me presenting to a group of teachers in 40 countries or so. So very familiar with that kind of general process, but making it a couple of days, doing it so I didn't have to pay for venues, kind of all these intricate, different things that made it very possible. And no expenses needed to get started. And that was, kind of possible because we're using schools. If you use we had a host school kind of arrangement, and the host school got to send all their staff free. And lots of other perks that kind of coincided. But
I love that way of thinking too. One thing I'm getting onto is mergers and acquisitions, but doing it in a way that doesn't require cash. There's value to be had in a whole range of different things, and it doesn't have to be money out of your pocket.
For sure.
And that I can see that's how you are thinking about how do we get this done and provide value and leverage what someone else finds value in so that we can actually do this thing.
Because if we put our hand up and say we want to hire a school, now we've got to sell enough tickets. There's all these pressures and assumptions, and I didn't want to be in that space. So, whenever we travel around the world, and we still do it now, there's never any cost that's ever been incurred from getting the venue. It's really just an exchange for, we'll give you a couple of free tickets. And in the big one that we ran in Dubai, it was 10 staff can come from your school free. And then we would have sponsors that donate sports equipment, and your school can just keep all that equipment. So they ended up with, $5,000-$10,000 of sports equipment. So it was kind of just
great
managing relationship kind of stuff and limiting risk.
I love that. And obviously the win for the sponsors and the value is access to the audience, right? That's great. I love that. Okay, there's some pretty cool success stories. Tell me about some failures. I want to hear about some lessons learned.
There's been a lot. There's heaps. I think we touched on it before, but these assumptions that people make about their audience can be dangerous. But not dangerous. Maybe they could be, but I've built things before where it's a solution in need of a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a lot of people when they come and talk to you about their business idea or their opportunity, they might be in that kind of mind frame. You know?
Right. So explain that that concept for the viewers. Like you've got a you-built idea,
Yeah.
but maybe no one has that problem.
Exactly. Yeah. So and that's a very common thing. So I've learnt the hard way.
Yeah.
That it makes sense to validate these kind of things in some way first, whether that's with actual paying customers or whether that's with some MVP solution that gets most of the way there or not all the way there, to limit these risky endeavors where you've built something and no one turns up.
Yeah.
And, you know, a couple of the small ones that I had built were some courses that no one wanted to get. So, like, I spent all the time making the course on the assumption that, this is going to make sense.
Yeah.
But no one actually signed up. Or we were a very small group of people, not to make the work make sense, but do that a bit down the track. And it was sell the course first and build it live with the audience.
Yeah.
And that was an entirely different kind of, level of risk needed. It's like, hang on, I've got 20 people who are doing this thing live. We're just going to build it together in real time.
Wow.
No realization from the audience that that's what was happening. It was really just what were they buying was the roadmap, and it was able to change based on feedback. And
Wow. So do you remember any specific examples of courses you thought were just going to be gangbusters and people didn't want them?
Yeah, one was like a video kind of analysis course, but in many ways it was just a bit too early.
Yeah.
We were talking about video analysis, but the course was just too soon.
What you're talking about, this idea of producing something and testing an assumption that doesn't take a lot of resource and everything like that. It's a similar concept to what I thought I bring from Good to Great by Jim Collins or Great by Choice, I should say, is the idea of firing bullets before cannonballs.
Yeah, sure.
And testing. So how do you approach that? Like, say you've got a great idea and you're not sure if the market wants it. What would you do next?
Well, hopefully you've got an audience. I think that probably might be a very important step that people miss. Great, you've got an idea or a solution that you think people might have. Do you have a channel to find out if this is a real thing? And some people don't have that yet, and that's going to be an issue because now you're having to buy an audience, like with ad spend or with affiliate kind of relationships and partnerships. But if you've got an audience that you've curated maybe through being a thought leader in that kind of area, that's going to be a big reason, a help. So I had that. I had this email list of 20,000 people, and it's a great breeding ground to be able to put things out and say, hey, does this resonate? This is what we're thinking. This is the idea. Here's the order button. This is why you would order now. And based on that, you're able to kind of validate and build in this early beta group in kind of like the Kickstarter model. Without kind of using Kickstarter. And the web app that is one of our most successful now, Sports Tracker, was built exactly that way. It cost me $156 to test and build that startup, which was the cash that I needed to do some proof of concept mock-ups. And I sold screenshots and ideas, and I had a sales cap in mind of what I needed to target, and I sold lifetime deals to those people. And if I didn't get enough sales, what would I do? I was just going to refund them. Fortunately, we scratched an itch that needed to be solved, and we built all the money needed to build the thing.
Wow!
But without having those people in that beta group, what we built would not be the same thing it is, because I had assumptions about what it would have been. So we've got a much better product now because we sold early to the market. And that's one of the bigger reasons why I like that approach.
Yeah, that's genius. But it really does hinge on having that audience, right?
I think so, yeah. I mean, you can do this stuff without it, but a lot of people I talk to have a problem that they think they can solve, but their way to get it out into the world is limited, which means you're now going to have to rely on other ways to do it, which are expensive, or you've got to lean on a friend that might have an audience there. So if you're sitting and thinking about potential product, like who are the target audience that you can attract now into a Facebook group or a LinkedIn kind of circle or something, just by sharing your thoughts and being helpful around that kind of, how can you attract them, become magnetizing, so that one day you've got this great group of 100 people that you can float these things to and kind of go from there, because it's very difficult to do it without an audience, even if your idea is amazing.
Yeah. What are some of the ways that you've used to build the audience? You talked about the blog initially. That would have been a great starting point because you would have owned that audience or that data, really, wouldn't you, on a blog?
I don't share it. I get to be able to use that at my disposal. Yeah.
Yeah. So what from there did you launch and bring the audience into a different space than the blog? And you said you talked about an email list now. How do you engage with them and continue to build that practically?
Sure. Yeah, over the years, it's been about producing content that's helpful, high quality content that's free in that domain of PE, and getting someone's email in exchange for that content. That's the basis of the business.
Yep.
So, I know people spend a lot of time building social platforms and profiles and the like on these different places, but if you don't, you're not in charge of that audience on those, and they can disappear, or you don't have the ability to reach them. So it's always try and own the race course, as James Schramko, my mentor, would say. How can you own the race course, not just be a horse on the race course?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a classic issue that everybody experienced with Facebook specifically, and a lot of different social platforms. But Facebook, as you would remember, in the early days, it was like, this is like audience building heaven. It's just like you have a group and they see everything you post every day. Every time you post it instantly.
Yep.
But then it all changed without anyone being able to influence that.
Yep.
Your reach to your group, the people that have said, I want to be in this group, your ability to actually reach them is throttled to a minuscule amount. Do you currently use any social media platforms to engage with your audience?
LinkedIn is a space where I go and just do thought leader type topic stuff. They're not all PE teachers that follow me, but they are. We've got 35,000 people or something that follow me on X. I was going to say Twitter, but X.
Yeah, good job.
However, these days, my interests on X is fully crypto based, and has been for 2017 or whatever. So I choose not to talk about PE and stuff on that platform, even though I know that that's where my business had most of its social reach and impact over the years.
Fascinating.
I've just stopped talking about PE on that platform, and because I wanted that platform to be something that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And these days, I have other platforms for that, which is LinkedIn and Facebook groups and things.
Well, that's an interesting topic as well, because we're talking about personal brand kind of stuff there, or separating and segregating the content that you put out on a particular platform. As we know, people are complex creatures. For example, I've run a couple of podcasts, but my LinkedIn doesn't say that. I may change it to that. It's about Hebron Films and the business that I run.
Sure.
But I've got heaps more interests than just running this one business, and there could be audiences to tap into, and particular things to creative outlets. How did you said you since 2017, how did you decide, was that just something you tested to go, look, I'm just going to separate out the content that I put out on different platforms? Was that a conscious thing, or was it like some content's getting more traction than others, or what?
Twitter used to be a really good platform for us for PE teachers, but I just personally interests.
Yeah, that's
And then
awesome.
picking other platforms to talk about. Like we do have a Facebook page, and there's plenty of PE specific groups that, I see things in and talk about, but it's just, changing over time as your interests do, and not feeling like I have to be a certain person on a certain platform because, I don't know, I wanted to benefit in other ways.
I love that.
Yeah.
It feels to me, and I bet it feels to you even more, that you've created spaces and tools that serve you,
Yeah.
rather than the other way around.
Yeah, people get in that trap.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if they might have a very successful business, but like we said earlier, a slave to it. And if they really think about it, like, do they like what they've created for themselves? And it's a choice. You can build things that make it better.
I'm wondering, as we're kind of getting towards wrapping up our conversation, I'm wondering where Connected PE is going. You're a visionary, you're a dreamer and a thinker.
Dreamer.
What's on the horizon for you at the moment? And do you have a plan for the business? Is it something you're building to sell? Is it something that is going to continue serving you, as we've talked about?
Well, there's products that are currently for sale. So a couple of products that we build and have as part of the umbrella. Yep. ConnectedPE is the umbrella, and underneath it we've got products and services.
Yep.
We sold one last year, which was an attendance capturing app.
Yeah, awesome.
I built that as a teacher. I'm like, I want a good way to capture attendance. This app came to existence and it ended up doing really well, but not in the classroom, in like karate studios and those sorts of spaces.
And how did you approach selling an app?
We use a service called acquire.com, and steps you through the process, and found a buyer, and because it's a recurring revenue business, it was just very attractive to them, and that was the first sale. And the second one that's currently in the process now would be 20 times that amount kind of sale, like a really big deal. And so building a business that incubates ideas and builds other businesses to sell them is definitely part of the thought process behind stuff. It's like, how can we start something, build it, make it scalable and profitable, and then sell it and get rid of it, and build a lifestyle that serves up what I would like to do.
Yeah, I love that. So it's Connected PE sounds like really the manufacturing plant that is pumping out things that you can sell, which is the next level kind of thinking, rather than approaching a business.
I think the word is called multipreneur.
A multipreneur?
I don't know, something like that. Like not awesome. Solopreneur. I heard someone coin it multipreneur. I don't know, I can't even think of the word now.
Yeah, that sounds pretty
it's
funky.
Like the idea is to build businesses that build businesses.
Wow, yeah, right.
And, have this kind of, opportunity to get rid of them. So a lot of the stuff I build now is very independent of me, Jarrod, and the personal brand. It's sellable because Connected PE begun as the PE Geek, which is actually what I'm known as online. And that was the blog. That was the main traction. But it was, if I want to make Connected PE sellable, I have to pivot away from being so reliant upon that initial kind of thing. So these days it's very much, how can you make something that someone else could run just as easily? Make them into assets, not jobs.
Wow, that's super cool. So it's going to continue pumping out things.
I hope so.
Multipreneur.
I might have butchered that word, but it's this idea that a solopreneur is limiting in its kind of thinking, and these days you can be trying different things in different arenas and doing it from one kind of umbrella and testing and hopefully building. It's a business that builds other businesses, which I kind of resonate with.
Yeah, that's super cool. All right, to round this out, what are your top tips for someone who's maybe sitting in that early business owner stage, or even thinking about launching into a business or running a business? I know that's like nearly everyone. What are your top tips for running and operating a successful business?
Anyone can do it. Like and I know that's very cliche, but some people wait for permission. And I don't. You're the reason that something can start or go. So just go for it. I think having an audience is kind of really important. So I would be putting time and attention into making sure that you have them in a way where you can communicate with them readily. And email still is the best for that, like without a doubt.
Yeah, there's a lot of people saying that email's dead. What would you say to that?
It's really not. Like it isn't. Like 40% open rates in our industry. It's still pretty high in other industries. So
It's pretty huge.
I mean, you've got thousands of people that are a click away from being able to engage you. That doesn't mean you don't leverage other platforms, but they should be driving to a resource that you own that can never be taken away from you. If my website's disappeared or my social platforms died, I could still send an email tomorrow and make an offer. It's like, if you're a business owner and you don't have a database that you truly own, I would be looking at how you can do that. How can you siphon people from your social media platforms through some sort of opt-in to get their email, and then be able to use that channel to market? Build an audience or control them a little bit better, and find out what kind of challenges they have and build things for that space. Test it first though. Like, don't make assumptions, and make the choice to build it in a way that serves you. Because the last thing you want to do is dread what you've set up and built.
Yeah.
And I've had moments of that too, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, conscious choice to serve me.
And I suppose that's a great wrap up of pretty much our whole conversation, those few key points. But it sounds like, and a lot of business people will resonate, dreading the job and feeling like they're controlled and they're just serving it. It sounds like you've gone hard into, and you've created something that's sustainable. Would you say that is your reality? You feel like you're not, there's not a time limit on your energy input, and that you're going to be able to continue and happily do so? Yeah.
Recurring revenue is a big factor in that. If you can make something recurring, then you probably should consider it, because it's very easy to sell once to a customer and do things to delight them and keep them forever. That's, I think, easier than having to go out and acquire new customers all the time. So, how can you take your one-off products and make them recurring is a big reason why much of this seems sustainable.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always like that. We used to sell lots of one-offs. So you're always in this sales kind of, got to make a sale, have to get some more leads in, and that is fatiguing. So if you can just do that once and deliver a good product and keep them recurring, you should aim for that.
Yeah, that's great. That is such a key principle of selling. It's so much easier to sell to someone that you've already sold to. So why wouldn't you just acquire the customer once and keep selling stuff to them that is actually helpful?
Keep delivering value. Like, that's what it comes down to. Make something that actually is valuable and package it up so that they just never don't have that thing. That's really what we do.
Yeah, that's so good. Jarrod, mate, thanks so much. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you are like burning desire to tell on this podcast?
I think apps and business owners can benefit from having their own kind of app. It's very easy to do these days. It's kind of like, you think back to how hard it used to be to build websites in the day, and then it became really easy. Now it's kind of very easy to build apps, and the idea of having a mobile app that serves your prospects and customers in interesting ways to help them get results is, I think a pretty awesome kind of thing. So what would an app look like for your business? Who knows? But it's much more accessible than it was previously.
That's a high value thing to think on.
Yeah.
I love it.
As your takeaway.
That's so good. Jarrod, thanks so much for coming on, mate. It's been an absolute honour and a pleasure to hear about your business.
Thanks for having me.
Can't wait to see what ConnectedPE does in the future. And if anyone wants to connect further with you, how could they do that? Whether it be crypto.
Well, there's lots to talk about there.
Yeah, I bet.
So many cool things happening in that space. But yeah, LinkedIn, just search my name on LinkedIn, and maybe you can link it in the show notes or something, and
Will do.
That would be the easiest.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, man.
This is a rockin' episode, and I hope you get lots of value from it. If you do, please hit the subscribe button and the like button, and I would love to hear what you think about it in the comments below.